Western parts of Scotland, we could see gusts up to 70 or 80 miles an hour, and in association with some high spring tides, that could lead to some coastal impacts. Temperatures still a little above average for the time of year, but definitely feeling cooler than Saturday with those strong winds. The next area of rain then arrives as we go through Sunday evening, particularly for Northern Ireland and much of Scotland, seeing the heavy outbreaks of rain through Sunday night and into the start of Monday. It will then remain unsettled as we go through the first part of next week, but temperatures still a little above average for the time of year.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm...
This is the final week to grab your chance to win £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. And you really could be next.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And if I can win, anyone can win.
For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. this Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
My friends, it's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Alex Armstrong, Emma Wolfe, and Andy Williams. Tonight on the show,
another tweeter jailed in Orwellian Britain.
Starmer betrays Britain again.
It's time to get balls out of women's sport.
Smartphone.
Emma, what have you got for us?
Smartphones are destroying our kids. Time for a total ban.
Andy?
Robert Jenrick's plan to leave the ECHR is not the silver bullet he thinks it is.
Brilliant. Yes, my friends, welcome to the Saturday 5, where we don't just watch the week's madness, we belly flop right into it. That is, until GB News sack me and I can get my mitts on some unemployment fat jabs. I'll be slimmer than you can imagine. So several British police forces have decided to throw a tantrum, my friends, and scale back their presence on Elon Musk's X. Apparently it no longer aligns with their values. And I say to that, do give over your soft sods. If a few mean tweets about your two-tier policing under two-tier free gear, no cheer care is enough to send you running, then maybe you should trade in your handcuffs for a comfort blanket, your clown cars for a pram, and your pride marches for a soft play zone. I mean, seriously, you can't handle the heat online. How do we expect you to cope with our actual streets? Get off our tweets, lads. It's time to start policing the streets instead. It's this kind of flouncing away from scrutiny that's left British policing in total tatters. But my friends, I have this to say. Do not worry, because the Saturday 5, we're here. We embrace the scorn, the ridicule and the criticism, because someone's got to. In fact, most of us have doubled down on Elon Musk's X because it does align with our values, and guess what they are? Free speech, brutal honesty and a healthy splash of mockery. This show is practically dripping in all three. First up, we've got Andy Williams, our resident woke lefty. Get ready for virtue signalling so thick you'll need a machete to hack yourself through. Then bringing some actual sense to the table, we've got Alex Armstrong, a bloke who can sniff out BS quicker than most of us can say, yet another lefty losing it. Then next we've got Emma Wolf. Don't worry, no relation to any fairy tale predators, but sharp enough to take down any nonsense that comes her way. And finally, coming to us straight from the land of giant spiders and even bigger freedoms, it's Aussie firebrand Will Kingston. He's here to remind us how to shake off the chains without needing a convict background to do it. Although under Sir Keir's reign, I probably am facing a spell in the gulag. But we're going to crack on before Andy has us all tree-hugging in a circle of guilt. You know the drill by now. Each host outlines their argument about a topic, then we all pile in. And of course, we want to know your views. Please do send them through. gbnews.com/your-say is the link you need. And don't forget your questions for Ask the Five. No topic is off limits. But before we start tearing each other apart, here's your Saturday night news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Darren, thank you very much. The top stories from the GB newsroom. The Prime Minister has insisted that the government will stick to its manifesto pledges amid reports the Chancellor may extend a freeze on tax thresholds. The Financial Times writes Rachel Reeves could raise £7 billion in revenue if the freeze is extended until 2028. It could help plug some of the £40 billion gap in the Treasury's finances with a hope of avoiding a return to austerity. But critics say it'll break the Labour promise not to raise taxes. In other news, the King and Queen Camilla have begun a landmark tour of Australia that'll see them celebrate the country's people, culture and heritage. A warning, some of the following contains flashing images. The couple's 6-day tour of the country started yesterday with a greeting on the runway by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. The visit includes a trip to the Australian War Memorial and Sydney Opera House, plus Parliament. GB News' royal correspondent Cameron Walker is in Sydney.
It's a rest day for the King and Queen's Day following their very long journey from the United Kingdom, partly a decision taken because of the King's cancer diagnosis, making sure he's got enough energy to carry out his engagements later on this week. The King and Queen has an informal cup of tea with the Prime Minister Anthony Albanese last night. Tomorrow they'll be attending a church service in northern Sydney where they are expected to meet members of the public.
However, the visit prompts questions over the country's future as a constitutional monarchy, with calls for it to become a republic. Earlier, Cameron Walker spoke to Alexander Volz from the Australian Monarchist League, who says support for the King and Queen is strong.
I think the tour is going to go really well. We're very optimistic, and at the end of the day, it's a reminder of the significance of our system and just how wonderful it is for this country. We love a bit of patriotism in the Monarchist League. We're very proud of our country. We love being Australian. We love our King and Queen of Australia. And so, yes, we'll be distributing a lot of flags. I think we've got about 15,000 ready to go.
Elsewhere, the Foreign Secretary says British businesses are seeking stability and clarity with China. David Lammy is on a 2-day visit to the country. His Chinese counterpart says bilateral ties are at a new starting point and competition among major powers should not be the backdrop to the era. Lammy said by being there, the UK can also raise issues that it doesn't agree with.
There are areas where we can cooperate and collaborate with the Chinese, and I've been speaking to British businesses about how we do that. There are, of course, areas in which we will compete, and there are differences in areas in which we will challenge areas like Hong Kong, areas like Taiwan, areas like human rights in Xinjiang, we were able to have those conversations and raise difficult and challenging issues.
Liam Payne's sister says she doesn't feel this world was good enough or kind enough to him in a heartfelt tribute to her late brother. In a statement posted on Instagram today, Ruth Gibbons said her brother's ability to make her laugh is what she loved most about him, adding she was in awe of his talent. Liam Payne's father has visited the hotel in Argentina where his son died as he read tributes left for the One Direction star outside the Casa Sur hotel. He was watched on by a crowd of mourners. Officials confirmed a search of the hotel found narcotics, alcohol and destroyed objects in the room. Fans laid flowers, played songs and lit candles in tribute to Liam on the Kiel Wharf Bridge at Royal Albert Dock in Liverpool today. And fans also paid tribute in the star's hometown of Wolverhampton, as GB News' West Midlands reporter Jack Carson reports.
Well, flowers and tributes continue to be laid here in Wolverhampton today. Last night, over 100 people attended a vigil to let balloons go into the air, to light candles and pay their respects to the One Direction star Liam Payne, who passed away in Buenos Aires earlier this week. For many, Liam Payne is one of Wolverhampton's own, growing up in the Bushbury area of the city, and many an emotional One Direction fan coming here to pay their respects today.
Elsewhere, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says nothing will deter him and that Israel will continue its fight against Hamas until victory. His comments come just hours after a drone strike on the holiday home of Netanyahu failed, according to sources. The Israeli leader was not in the house or in the vicinity at the time of the attack, and the IDF says nobody was injured. Fired from neighbouring Lebanon, 3 drones were aimed at the town of Caesarea, with 1 hitting a building and 2 intercepted. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader says the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar will not halt its axis of resistance. And could this be the comfiest train seat in the country? Well, that's what the company making the chairs for the HS2 rail service is hoping. Passengers will be treated to 87 centimetres of legroom, 2 plug sockets and reclining features. After backlash against some existing services where passengers compared seats to ironing boards, rail leaders say they hope to rectify the industry's pretty bad job designing seats. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. More from me in an hour.
Cheers, Tatiana. It's Saturday night and you're with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for a very lively show. We're going to crack on with tonight's first debate. Right, which one of us wants to go free?
It's my sad duty to start this
week,
week,
that believes
Darren.
in freedom.
I do, unlike the UK government, as we'll get to shortly. Lucy Connolly was jailed for 31 months on Thursday following a tweet that she posted in the aftermath of the tragic attacks in Southport in July. There was no clear evidence that this directly incited violence. It certainly wouldn't have met the test for incitement in the US, for example. This indicates to me that this was a punishment for a thought as opposed to a punishment for the consequences of that thought. Make no mistake, this crackdown on thought crime in the United Kingdom is far more dangerous to this country than any tweet possibly could be. Now, for starters, it just doesn't work. There has never been an example in human history of an idea being eliminated because a government stopped the expression of that idea. But moreover, and I think something which has gone unsaid recently, this is reflective of a country that has lost complete confidence in itself. We used to trust individuals and communities with words because we had a strong sense of values that we knew would endure whether or not someone said good things or bad things. Now we outsource that responsibility to an increasingly authoritarian government. This hate speech regime in the United Kingdom hasn't worked and it needs to be dismantled. The question is there a leader on the right with the courage and with the intellect to make that case?
Well, I'm happy to be Prime Minister.
Too many skeletons in the
All my skeletons are in the public domain. Thank you very much. Andy, you've got to have some strong words about that, surely.
Well, I think 31 months, 2.5 years, that is a severe sentence. I think it's too severe.
Not proportionate, then?
I don't think it's proportionate. I do think, though, two things. Firstly, that we do need to have rules and guardrails around hate speech in Britain. I do. I don't think it should be a free-for-all. I don't think we should replicate the situation in the United States where you can say whatever you like and it's completely fine. I do think there are certain things that are beyond the pale. Now, whether or not this... I mean, clearly, legally, this met the threshold, because if it didn't, she wouldn't be in jail. But what I would say is there seems to be, from some people on the right, a lot of sympathy towards Lucy Connolly. I have no sympathy for her whatsoever. She is clearly an awful person based on what she said. She said mass deportation now. She was calling for people to set fire to a hotel with migrants in it. We should have absolutely no sympathy with that. Whether or not she should go to jail for 2.5 years for saying that is a different question.
I just think, though, Andy, at a time when Labour are telling us that the Tories have left them with a really horrible mess when it comes to the prison situation.
Which they have.
And you had, over recent weeks, a teenager cleared of all charges after stabbing a man on board a London train because he claimed it was in self-defence, and he got away with it. There's been no arrest on no charge, rather, when it comes to the Manchester airport, in which a woman was hit so hard that she had lacerations across her face, a police officer. And there were protesters going through London carrying "I love Hezbollah," a proscribed terrorist organisation, placards. Nothing has happened to them as of yet. But we said that we need to be completely vindictive in our approach when it comes to anyone that said anything during the weeks after the Southport massacre. And I think that's the word to use. This is vindictive, it's spiteful, and you have ensured that carers of the elderly, you have ensured that a mother is without a child, an 18-year-old boy flying a flag of St. George.
Well, hang on.
All in prison for years at a time. Do you not think any of the crimes that I've listed there, in which there have been no charges or people have got off scot-free, that actually they're more severe than sending a sodding tweet?
Well, I think there are clearly... Look, our justice system is broken, partly because of a complete lack of funding. We're in a situation where there are trials that won't be held until 2027 for crimes that have been committed recently. That's mad. It's partly because we've been starved of funding in our judicial system. I come back to the point, I do think it's a disproportionate sentence, but I have no sympathy for her whatsoever. Terrible, terrible thing to say. Awful person, sorry.
I think that's a red herring. The issue is the first point that you raised, and that is that this just doesn't work. The statute that she was charged under is from 1986. Do we really think that racial harmony has got dramatically better in this time as a result of having legal guardrails in place?
Was it the Public Order Act?
It's the Public Order Act.
I was once investigated under the Public Order Act for racial hatred.
I think this is what really upsets the public, right? This is what really annoys them, because you've given all those examples there, and this is where we get this two-tier justice from, right? You look at what happened with Hugh Edwards' case and the man that provided Hugh Edwards with those photos. None of them went to prison, right? And that enrages people. And Andy, I know you're saying that you're not justifying the long term that she got in jail. That's fair. But frankly, it stinks. It stinks of the justice system that we have today. It stinks of lefty lawyers cracking down on political enemies. That's what it feels like to a lot of people in this country. We've got to have some proportionality and some sensible minds in the courts in order to provide a proper sentence.
Yeah, and I think Will is absolutely right. This kind of crackdown on thought crime doesn't work. I think Darren's right about the vindictiveness of this kind of sentencing. But worse than that, I think there was panic. I think there was sort of a government flailing around in those weeks following the Southport riots. Southport was an appalling tragedy, but this is not the answer to it. This bizarre, draconian sentencing for basically sending stuff on, for retweeting stuff on social media or saying stuff on social media. Social media isn't real life. Of course it has real life consequences, but this highlighted Labour's lack of preparedness, their panic, panic decisions, and as Alex says, two-tier policing.
Yeah.
That's what's getting people so angry.
I'd agree
because
with
you know what?
Yeah,
Real criminals who are actually shoplifting, attacking people, are not being sentenced, and real criminals who are in prison are being released.
I'd agree with a lot of what you said, but I would look at it another way, which is, you know the laws of this country. You know how things work, and she didn't have to say those things, and she did.
She said it.
And people need to.
And what?
You know, people on the right often say you need to take personal responsibility. Well, she is now taking personal responsibility. I don't feel sorry for her.
Well, let me just say this. Let me just say this. If it were the other way round, and let's say it was a group of asylum seekers, then they want to burn down a council estate full of white English people, we would be an uproar about that. So we have to be honest, right? No, I'm saying I'm trying to give a counterexample to help you, actually, Andy.
It would be a proposition if she had actually gone out and burnt the hotel.
Yes, it would. But I wanted to actually get back to Will's point, because it's a slippery slope, I think, is where we're going down. It's this freedom of... It's this crackdown of words, crackdown of thought that is absolutely Orwellian. It's absolutely terrifying, and we do need to be a little less snowflakey in our country.
Exactly. Right. Who is... I think, actually, it's time now for a little woke adventure.
If that's... I assume that's me. Okay.
I said nothing.
Just asking you to cast your mind back to 2016, and the Vote Leave campaign is telling you it's really simple. If we leave the European Union, all of our problems will be solved. We'll have higher wages, we'll become a more prosperous country, we're going to be free to trade with the EU with minimal bureaucracy, and, of course, we'll take back control of migration and bring the number of people coming to Britain down to the tens of thousands. And what's happened since Brexit? Real wages are back at 2005 levels. Try asking any small business owner, how easy is it to trade with Europe these days? And over the past 3 years, we've seen net migration into Britain of 1.9 million. Now, I say all this not to relitigate the total failure of Brexit, but because one of the two candidates for the Conservative Party leadership claims to have found another silver bullet, something that's going to solve all of our problems at a stroke. All we have to do, Robert Jenrick says, is leave the ECHR and we'll stop the boats overnight. Now, putting to one side the fact that small boat crossings account for only 2.4% of all migration, the Supreme Court has made clear that the ECHR, leaving the ECHR, would make almost no difference to our position on migration. Indeed, there are good reasons to stick with the ECHR for the protections it affords us as citizens. Now, Kemi Badenoch says leaving the ECHR is no more than an easy answer to a very difficult question. I agree. We should be suspicious of politicians like Robert Jenrick who are trying to sell us a lie once again.
Well, Phoebe on Your Say says the ECHR is not the problem. Like our membership of the EU, it's being used as an excuse for the globalist politicians to carry on with the influx of foreigners to our homeland. This will continue until we have leaders whose priority is the needs of the British people. And your favoured leader said that he prefers Davos over Westminster, so we ain't got much truck there. But what I would say to that is, why are you conflating Brexit with the ECHR? They've got absolutely naught to do with each other.
I'll tell you why, because Brexit was positioned by people who supported it as a one-size-fits-all solution to all the problems we had in Britain. And the ECHR, Robert Jenrick is saying, is the same. But if we just sort this, he's saying it's a binary question, it's leave or remain, and if we leave the ECHR, everything will be fine.
I think you're conflating two different things, Andy, because before Brexit, before we even had the conversation about Brexit, illegal boat crossings were not a thing, right? So cast your mind back to 2014, 2013. It wasn't really an issue. It's become an issue in the last 4 or 5 years, a big issue, actually. And so, controlling legal migration was all about Brexit. It's about, actually, we can't stop EU citizens entering Britain, right? But that was part of the deal of being part of the European Union.
But legal migration has gone massively up since...
I'm not disagreeing with you about that, and that's down to the Tories, that's down to successive governments, and they should be held, they should be criticised for that. Yeah. But the point is that the legal boat crisis is different, and the ECHR are stopping us, in many cases, from letting people leave this country.
This is the thing, it may not be the problem, but it certainly is a problem when we have terrible people in this country, a series of high-profile cases which are being blocked from deportation for these ridiculous, woke, silly reasons. Fine, say we need a multifaceted approach, but don't deny that they are limiting our ability to have a controlled migration system.
Do you think Australia is a sort of fascist, swivel-eyed, awful state? Do they rely on the ECHR, remind me?
No, they don't. But let's look at France. So France sends 70% of illegal migrants back to their original country.
And do you know
we
what?
send 10% back.
Do you know what they do?
So it can't be the ECHR.
They ignore the ECHR. That's why they've got no truck with those horrible sort of globalist outlook judges.
You say France don't have any truck with supranationalists. I mean, they're one of the two most important countries in the heart of the European Union.
When it comes into national domestic politics, they often ignore them, yeah. Emma.
What do our borders mean anymore? What does border control mean anymore? I hate to say it, but I think we just say, for a while, we just say we can't take any more.
Yeah.
We are full. Until we can work out, I don't care what government it is, until we can work out a sane and workable and effective immigration policy in this country, we need to stop. We need to close our borders for a while because we are actually full.
So that's easy to say, but how are you practically
dangerous
going to do
crossings.
that?
I don't want to see any more pregnant women. I don't want to see any more 2-year-olds being trampled to death, freezing to death in these ferries. I don't want to see any more of this. We cannot take any more. The NHS is creaking. Our schools are creaking. We're absolutely overwhelmed. The housing system is overwhelmed. This country, we are generous. We are welcoming. But enough is enough.
I mean, Andy, I know you used the example of France, but look at Giorgia Meloni. She's in the press today because lefty lawyers, in part of the European laws, the ECHR, have stopped her, and they're saying you cannot send another migrant there. And that's actually in Albania. That's not even a Rwanda-style arrangement. So there's a lot to be said about that.
Indeed. We'll have to leave that thought for after the break. Up next, though, we are going to discuss a young footballer with suspected autism facing a 12-match ban for asking a trans opponent, with a beard, by the way, if they were a man. What on earth is going on? Next, though, the Prime Minister has struck a deal for migrants arriving at the Chagos Islands to be deported to St Helena, and the deal has reportedly cost £6 million of your money. Is this Rwanda-style deal another betrayal of the British people? What are we doing it for? You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
You know, is the fact that electric blanket sales going up actually a good thing? This means that people are switched on to the problems that the winter might hold, that they might have some defence against it, or is it a real indictment of a Labour government that they aren't going to be able to, support elderly people in their hour of need?
Good morning, by the way.
Morning.
I think the sale of electric blankets may well be because we've had this cold snap because of the Arctic weather coming in from the north. However, I think it's an absolute reality that, as your clip said, that over 800,000 elderly people who are eligible for the winter fuel allowance, who can get pension credits, are struggling to apply. And so what is absolutely essential at the moment is that all of those older people who are eligible for pension credits do apply and do get what's owed to them. The benefits are owed to them. And the average that people will get through pension credits is about £78 a week. So that's definitely going to make a massive difference to people who are really struggling.
What can organisations like yours do to encourage people to, educate themselves on technology and make that first step into the digital world, which is very intimidating at times?
Absolutely, and that's what we do at Good Things Foundation. So we're a national charity. We work all across the whole of the UK. And in your clip there, you had Links Digital, and they're a member of what we call the National Digital Inclusion Network, which is a network of local charities, small local community organisations, food banks, job centres, old people's clubs. So anyone, any organisation at that local level.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your emails about tonight's topics. Well, gosh, I mean, you're kicking off. Lucy Connolly. Lee says what she did was totally wrong, but 2.5 years is disturbing. On this basis, what sentence should someone like Dawn Butler be given for stirring up? We all know what's going on here. And actually, another of our viewers, whose name I have just lost, I do beg your pardon, but they said, if I say I'm so angry I could kill someone, am I going to go to prison for incitement?
No.
Probably, though.
Is that how this works?
Obviously not. It's completely different.
And actually, apparently in the tweet, she didn't actually say that people should go out and do that. She said she wouldn't be bothered if someone went out and did that or something to that effect. That's what one of our viewers has said.
She said set fire to them.
Well, I still don't think 2.5 years is remotely proportionate for a tweet. I just don't. Fair enough if she had burnt the thing down. But then someone else says, Will, come back to this very quickly. You all clapped when Just Stop Oil protesters who blocked roads and that were given harsh sentences. Are you not being hypocritical on this?
No, because that's public disorder. That's not freedom of speech. I'm happy for them to go do it in a public park, just not taking up the roads.
Preventing other people from going about their daily business.
It's a completely different problem.
Okie dokie. Who's going to go next then?
Oh, I think it's me, Darren.
Uh-oh.
Right, well, Keir Starmer has once again betrayed the British public. In the latest humiliation for our country, Starmer and Lammy have struck a new deal with the Mauritian government where we will pay to deport illegal immigrants arriving in Chagos to St Helena. That's a small British island just off of Africa, 5,000 miles away. The last time that island saw such unwanted guests was when we banished Napoleon there 174 years ago. But let's not forget, Starmer heralded his cancellation of the extremely similar Rwanda plan on his first day in office and has done nothing since to replace it, nor stop the 14,000 illegals that have arrived since he took office. The people of St Helena are in uproar over this. Their small island of only less than 4,500 people already faces pressure on its public services. So has this got to be the worst trade deal of all time? Why is Keir Starmer so determined to sell us out and turn us into a dumping ground for illegal immigrants? Andy, how can Starmer... Sorry, straight over to you. How can Keir Starmer get away with creating a Rwanda-style deal? I know it's temporary, but how can he do that when he has removed any deterrence from our own country?
Well, it is temporary and it is completely different. And also, the Rwanda policy was a complete failure. Firstly, because it manifestly was not a deterrent. I've said this so many times on this channel. It was not a deterrent.
It was a deterrent. Of course it was.
Well, there's no evidence that it was.
No, there absolutely was. Look at the 14,000 people that have come here since he got into office. Is more than the whole 7 months prior in the Tory government. Of course it was a deterrent. People were fleeing to Southern Ireland, Andy.
You know as well as I do that part of it is seasonal, right? So more people come in the summer, we've just come...
The
highest day crossings was October the 2nd.
Do we
or
really,
maybe the 4th.
Let's be serious, right? So 25% more people came in 2022 versus 2024 year to date, right? So I don't think people are standing on the beaches in Calais going, oh, is a Labour government going to get...
Andy, there were people being interviewed on those beaches who said, yes, I can't wait for Keir Starmer to become Prime Minister.
It's quite easy to
It's anecdotal for sure. It's anecdotal for sure. But it is, but if there's one of them, there's thousands more of them. But I mean, that's how it goes.
That's not how...
Of course it is.
There's a more simple argument here. Where's the benefit for the United Kingdom in all this?
There is none.
There's zero.
This is the key point. That should be the first and main priority of Keir Starmer, and there's no benefit to the United Kingdom.
They say it's to protect our territorial waters.
I mean, come on. I mean, it's a joke.
As
I said, it is...
handed over for absolutely sweet now.
I'm trying to work out what are you annoyed about the cost? Because if it's the cost, it's 1% of the Rwanda scheme.
Well,
it's 1% we don't need to pay
for it. We don't need to buy
hang on,
that. It's not ours anymore.
But last week, or 2 weeks ago, when the announcement was made about the Chagos Islands, people were upset about the fact we were giving it up.
Yes, I am. But now we've given it up, Andy. How does it make sense that we're paying over this money for them to sort it out?
It's a temporary arrangement during the transition phase. So we currently are still the custodians of the Chagos Islands, and for as long as we are, we will bear this burden, and when we're not, we won't.
But we haven't been up until this point in time when we've decided to hand... It doesn't make any sense. So we've decided to get rid of these islands, surrender our territory, and then at the same time we'll go, we're going to pay you for the privilege of that. Oh, and by the way, anyone that decides to come here in the meantime is going to go to British territory, 5,000 miles away.
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense, Andy. If there's a will to do this, there's a will to do a Rwanda-style deal for
What
UK.
I would say, Emma, is have the people of St Helena been actually asked about this, whether or not they're happy with this, and also can we send Andy and the illegal migrants to St Helena?
No, seriously, are these decisions being made by Starmer? Are they being made by the uber clown of all of the clowns, David Lammy, in his trainers? Because I think, seriously, I mean, lots of what Labour have done in the first few months is laughable, but it is reversible, like giving back, you know, stopping our pensioners from freezing, things like that. But this kind of stuff is serious and it is irreversible. Giving back the Chagos Islands with absolutely no consultation, no public discussion, it's so
Consultation
damaging.
of who? Were you suggesting we should have a referendum on this?
You don't think we should have had a discussion about that? You don't
No.
think it should have been in the manifesto?
No.
You think it was just we all just woke up and that's what David Lammy had decided to do?
Yes. Yeah.
OK, all right.
I actually do.
OK, come on, Andy, you have to admit... Andy, come on. Listen, hang on, one second. You must admit this is the worst trade deal in British history. Come on. You can't see any... What's the benefit for us?
It's so irrelevant. That's,
the US...
Would you say that about the Falkland Islands? Would you say that about
which is a
any other
completely
British
different...
overseas territory?
No, because that is a completely different situation. It's completely different. Obviously, I would not say that.
They didn't even have the respect to talk to the Chagosians about it.
Exactly.
The United
What a
States
bigot.
the Secretary of who?
You.
Come on. The Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, said this is a win for diplomacy, right? So the US are happy.
I wouldn't trust Joe Biden's administration with anything, quite frankly, but yes, I see what you're saying.
Oh, good. The US are happy. That's all right.
Well, exactly, yeah. Are we a sort of
do you think we should...
of the US?
We're a declining nation.
The United States or not?
Well, I don't think we should be a little puppet for the
Thatcher still went to the Falklands after Reagan asked her not to. She had some balls, ironically.
Right. Yeah, well,
good segue.
We're going to
talking about balls.
Talking about ladies with balls in a second, because still to come tonight, is it time to set a digital age of consent? There's been a new survey that's revealed a shocking number of children who spend more time on their phones than they do in the classroom. Do we need to do something about this? Next of all, though, a young footballer with suspected autism faces a 12-match ban for asking a trans opponent with a beard if they were a man. What on earth is going on? You're with the Saturday Five in the wacky world of Broncos Britain. This is, well, live on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Ashley is arriving overnight tonight and into the start of tomorrow, bringing some wet and windy weather across much of the UK, with yellow and amber wind warnings in force for many places. Storm Ashley is situated out in the Atlantic at the moment, moving towards the UK with those very tightly packed isobars indicating those strong winds. It will start dry for most of us this evening though, but turning increasingly cloudy from the west as we see this initial rain band arriving in association with Storm Ashley, and those winds really starting to pick up, particularly along Irish Sea coast, where we could see gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. It will be quite a mild night, those temperatures holding up in the double figures, particularly in the south and the west due to all that cloud and those strong winds. In association with this rain band, we will see some particularly heavy rainfall, particularly over the high ground of southwest England, Wales, and across northern parts of England and into parts of Scotland as well. Perhaps some brightness to start with across parts of Northern Ireland as that rain band pushes its way eastwards, and the far northeast of Scotland holding on to some of those clearer skies for a time during the morning. However, with those strong winds, that rain band will push its way eastwards relatively quickly as we go through the morning on Sunday, but it's the winds in the far north that do start to pick up. Parts of western Scotland could see gusts of 70 to 80 miles an hour, and in association with some high spring tides, we could see some coastal flooding in places. Turning a little drier across much of England and Wales as we go through the afternoon, and temperatures still above average for the time of year, but definitely feeling cooler than Saturday with those strong southwesterly winds. To start on Monday, still plenty of showers around across parts of Scotland, and it will still be a windy day, though not quite as windy as Sunday afternoon. Dry for much of Wales, southwest England, but in the far southeast we do have this area of rain just pushing its way north and eastwards, bringing some wet weather through the afternoon. Remaining unsettled through the middle part of next week, but temperatures still a little above average for the time of year.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe. Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss my big opinion. Mark Meets at my take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. Andy did say that he would kill one of us during the break, and we have reported him to the police. He will be doing time at His Majesty's pleasure. I still
31
can't get
months.
used to that. Yep, 31 months in the slammer, because, you know what, he believes in law and order. Now, Greg has written in, my friends, and Greg says, the Aussie accent is growing on me, but it's not quite the Geordie one.
Yeah, fair.
I would agree with that. Earlier, he said the words duty of care, and I thought I said, who's Julia Cares? I couldn't understand. And he said, oh, I must remember to enunciate. Right, now, though, it's time for our next debate. I'm going to go next, actually, so sod you all. Right. Kemi Badenoch this week, one of the Tory contenders for the leadership, she made waves by suggesting she'd award J.K. Rowling, the author, a peerage for her fearless defence of women's rights against the relentless mob of cancel culture vultures from the trans lobby. She also said this during Thursday's GB News debate.
So look at the things that I did do. They were very difficult things. We need people who are brave. We need courage. That is what I showed when I was in government, when everybody was laughing as I pointed out what was happening to young children, mostly young gay children, being sterilised. Nobody wanted to hear about it. I cut through the crap. The fact of the matter is there were too many other people who turned their eyes away when those things were happening.
I liked it then and I like it now. An act of common sense from the last government, so rare these days. I almost wondered if it was the end of the road for the trans tyrants gripping British life. But no, they're still flexing their muscles. And boy, oh boy, they've got them because they're men. Case in point here, a young female footballer who might be on the autism spectrum, she now faces a whopping 12-match ban for daring to ask a bearded transgender opponent, are you a man? Now, can you imagine the audacity of this woman, of her, to actually be concerned for her safety playing with men? After already facing aggressive tackles, she even asked the referee for clarification on whether the player was actually eligible to play. The horror. What a vile, bigoted witch! Burn her! Am I nailing this woke stuff yet, Andy? No. Meanwhile, over in the world of cricket, the England and Wales Cricket Board have decided that female players will only be protected from competing against trans males if they're, wait for this, if they're good enough. So you've got to be high profile enough in a good enough league. A woman not talented enough to be on those pitches, well, tough luck. You'll just have to deal with blokes in your sport. Another stunning and brave victory for equality, eh? I think she was right, this former Labour MP, Rosie Duffield. She called Sir Keir Starmer. She said, well, my friends, she said he's got a woman problem. But as these sporting debacles actually show, it's not just him. I think, actually, across British life, there are pretty serious women problems. Now, Emma, as our honorary woman on the panel...
How dare you assume my gender?
If
Don't misgender me.
if this was you back in the day, kicking a ball about or using a cricket bat, how would this make you feel?
Well, back in the day, it wouldn't have happened. When I was 12, it wouldn't have happened. I feel really sorry for this young girl who apparently is on the autism spectrum. But poor thing, look, us adults who've created all this mess, we don't even know what's going on in this whole crazy world. We don't even know what we're allowed to say, how we're allowed to refer to people, what's safe and what's not. My gym has a very unclear policy about this. And I'm telling you, I would be absolutely horrified if I came out of the swimming pool, you know, if I came out of the pool, I was in the showers or whatever, and there's a man there identifying as a woman. I think it's an awful situation we've created. So many, the majority of adults respect other people's choices, they respect their sexuality, they respect who they love, they can live how they want, they can dress how they want, all of that. But when we come to this nonsense that we are feeding our children especially, that a man can be a woman, a man can have a penis and be a woman, all of this stuff, it needs to stop. It really, really does. I think many gay men say they're embarrassed at this. This does them a disservice. I have some lesbian friends who go to groups who say they're being invaded by young men claiming to be women.
Well, I mean, to be honest, I just don't know
mess.
what being trans has to do with homosexuality, to be honest.
Well, they've grouped this. Stonewall and pressure groups like that have made this their primary thing now because they've got nothing else to complain about, frankly. I mean, gay rights are pretty much the same as most people in this country.
You think that this is an abomination?
It's a complete abomination. This is tyranny of the minority. This is a small... I mean, even the census admitted those silly questions they put on the census that overestimated the amount of trans people. So we know that they're probably less than a percentage of all British people, yet women who have, a lot of them possibly gone through abuse and difficult times, are now having to share bathrooms, share football pitches with physically grown, fully grown men. It is wrong. We need to stop this. We need to let women have their own space and protect them from these predatory people.
Well, if one day, you know, you have a little girl, I mean, would you be happy about her being told that actually she's going to have to play footy with a bloke?
No, of course I wouldn't. And I think this is the really sad thing about this warped ideology, is that it cloaks itself in kindness and tolerance. And you just look at this story and you hear that this is a 12-year-old girl, let alone whether she's on the autism spectrum or not. And maybe at the time, at the sporting game, there could have been some confusion about something that was said, but then she's been going through a whole suspension process. Did someone actually stop and say that this...
She's 17, actually, not 12.
17, you're right, fine, she's a child. She's a child. Did anyone stop and say
and by the way,
incredibly unfair?
And by the way, children say all sorts of things. Children say, you're black, you're white. They say, you're fat, you know?
But if she's 17, that means that this man is a developed man, right? He's starting to get there when it comes to getting out of adolescence. I mean, Andy, you must think that this is... You're waving your trans flag. You're saying this is progress. I love this. Sir Keir Starmer is on the side of equality.
Well, I don't think it's got anything to do with the Labour Party, actually, firstly. And secondly, I think it's a really...
I think Rosie Duffield would argue otherwise.
Well, she would, but whatever. I think this is a really complex issue. And I honestly, I don't really know what I think about this. I have to be honest. I just feel
Get
like...
off the fence.
No. I feel like I probably haven't invested the time to read up enough to fully understand what is a genuinely complex issue. And my main view is I think we should be respectful both of... hang on. I think we should be respectful of trans people and people who feel that they're in that position, but also of women.
But you must have a view.
Yeah,
you must have a view
on men playing with little girls. Oh, God, that sounded awful. I certainly didn't mean it like that.
Against.
Yes, against.
Look, when it comes to why can't you respect everybody's choices, as I've just said, as you've just said? You respect other people, but still,
and I think it's
still
delicate
say
balance.
a woman is a woman and a man is a man.
Well, I think it depends what you mean by that. I do think...
I can happily qualify. I can happily qualify. When I went to school...
I just said what I meant.
I think you're being deliberately obtuse here.
No, I'm not being obtuse. I do think this is where I think on both sides of this argument there are people who say, well, it's very, very straightforward. I think you've got people who say if somebody defines themselves as a woman, that's up to them, and I don't think it's as straightforward as that. I also don't think it's as straightforward as saying, well, a man is a man, a woman is a woman.
Andy, just to end, when you one day have a child, right, will you be happy for her, as a little girl, to do this, to be playing with these men?
Playing sports with them?
Yes.
I don't think that's a massive problem.
Wow.
I think that's that's crazy, Andy. Come on. I do think we young girls need to be protected, for sure.
All right. Still to come, my friends, after that madness, we'll speak to a showbiz insider about the tragic death of former One Direction star Liam Payne. Now, I know some of you are going to get your knickers in a twist and say, why are we talking so much about this celebrity? But I think this story really matters. Talking about addiction really matters. But next, is it time to set a new digital age of consent? A survey has revealed a shocking number of children who spend more time on their phones than they do in the classroom. It ain't good for them. You're with the Saturday 5 live on GB News.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
I'm joined now by an acknowledged authority on Ludwig van Beethoven. He's already written 7 books on the subject, and next week his 8th is released. It's called In Search of Beethoven, and it stands apart as a deeply personal account of John Suchet's relationship with the great composer as he follows his footsteps from Bonn to Vienna. Yes, I introduce author, journalist and classic FM presenter John Suchet.
Hello, Mike.
It's delightful to have you here, and you have, as I say, written now 8 books on Beethoven. So the question is, why Beethoven?
Well, the word that is often used that I don't like is obsession, obsessive, because somehow there's something not quite right about that. The word that I use is passion. I have a passion for this man's life and music that began, I suppose, around 50 years ago, sometime in my early 20s. I can't remember the exact moment. He kind of crept up on me, and suddenly, as I was a journalist, TV journalist all my life, but before that I was a failed musician. I wanted to be a professional musician, but fortunately for the world of music, I realised I didn't have the talent. But this man's music crept up on me, and I knew from then that it would not go away, it would only increase, and that is what's happened. There are other composers I will listen to, minor names like Mozart, Wagner, Haydn, but Beethoven just does it for me. I was highly educated musically at school because I loved it, to the extent that I wanted to turn professional, but as I say, I didn't have the talent, but that has stayed with me. I read music, I understand music, as you say, I play the trombone, in those days to quite a high level.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. This is GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. We're going to go straight to our final debate of this hour. It is indeed the Wolfster on camera 7.
So put your phone down and pay attention, because I think we're in a real mess when it comes to smartphones. A new study this week finds that it's actually a study of parents finds that 1 in 7 children are spending more than 7 hours a day on their smartphones. That's more time than they spend at school. That is absolutely appalling. Overwhelmingly, when you talk to parents, and I'm a parent, I'm a mother, when you talk to parents, there is a problem. Parents overwhelmingly want to limit or even eliminate the growing smartphone addiction. They have struggles with it, they have arguments with their kids about this, and actually, weirdly, young people as well are not happy. Young people know that they're isolated, that they're depressed, that they're anxious because of these smartphones, because of these things they're shackled to. And yet this week, the government, Andy, decided not to ban smartphones in schools, which is, to me, is a baffling decision, and it's really lacking in boldness. It's lacking in something that I think would have been really overwhelmingly positive for schools and for children. There is a reason why children in the UK are more anxious, more depressed, more unhappy, even fatter and even blinder than their European counterparts. Yes, we have a growing myopia problem in this country because of the addiction to smartphones, which starts in young children. And that's really worrying when you talk to opticians who say it is actually ruining their eyesight at such a young age. I think we're doing kids a huge disservice. As for education and digital screens and digital whiteboards and interactive this, that and the other, don't tell me that you need screens and digital support in a classroom. If you do, you are a failure as a teacher. We were all educated perfectly well with books and with encyclopedias and with proper teaching. So yes, I would say, you call me a Luddite, you call me a loony, whatever, ban screens from schools, ban smartphones from schools, and actually ban the internet for the under-16s. Roblox, I'll finish now, but Roblox, which is one of the most popular sites amongst young children, it has 80 million daily users. Roblox this week was called an X-rated hellscape of paedophilia, violence, grooming and porn. Is that somewhere that you would like your children to play?
Emma, one of our viewers says parents are able to restrict the child's usage of a smartphone. Why don't they do that?
No, they're not. It's extremely difficult.
It's not. It's not. I'm gonna kick off the debate on this one.
The table disagree, but we're very short answers.
Yes,
we're running out of time.
Look, there is loads and loads of tools for parents to control this use, and I do think the onus lies on the parents who make sure their children are consuming well, are learning well. I get your point about schools. I do agree with it there, but I think in general we're going to leave a whole generation of young people behind.
Alex, let me just tell you as a parent, I'm bringing up my child screen-free, television-free, everything-free.
Yeah.
But it is really hard. I know a security expert who says there are so many ways around this stuff.
Sure.
It's down to the industry to start allowing phones to have the proper bans. It's really hard to do it.
Really hard doesn't mean impossible. Work harder.
Oh. Ooh.
Yeah?
Got an Elon Musk in the room.
Says the childless.
Yeah, work harder, Emma.
It is hard bringing up your child screen-free. It is hard work. As a single mother, it would be the easiest electronic babysitter in the world. Put your kid in front of a screen.
Yeah.
It's hard work not to do it and to parent properly.
Andy.
Yeah, sorry.
Oh, no.
Oh, go ahead. I think there's a really interesting question. You know, is this the job of parents? Do we leave it to the state? It's probably both. But what I would say is the data on the harm that smartphones do is absolutely open and shut.
Unequivocal.
Incidences of anxiety, bullying, self-harm, even suicide have gone through the roof. I'm really, really glad that I wasn't at school when social media was a thing.
I just think this is complete nanny state level stuff, and once you give the government control of the restrictions and locking things up at certain ages, who's to say they don't do it for political opponents, for all these things? And I just don't like that encroachment. Give parents the choice.
All right.
About children.
Yeah. Okie dokie. Some debate there, folks. And Andy even had a view. Loads more to come. We'll answer questions in Ask the Five, and Will and Emma are going to scrap it out on fat loss jobs for the unemployed. Next, though, we're going to be speaking about the death of Liam Payne. I'll see you after this.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Ashley is arriving overnight tonight and into the start of tomorrow, bringing some wet and windy weather across much of the UK, with yellow and amber wind warnings in force for many places. Storm Ashley is situated out in the Atlantic at the moment, moving towards the UK with those very tightly packed isobars indicating those strong winds. It will start dry for most of us this evening though, but turning increasingly cloudy from the west as we see this initial rain band arriving in association with Storm Ashley, and those winds really starting to pick up, particularly along Irish Sea coast, where we could see gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. It will be quite a mild night, those temperatures holding up in the double figures, particularly in the south and the west due to all that cloud and those strong winds. In association with this rain band, we will see some particularly heavy rainfall, particularly over the high ground of southwest England, Wales, and across northern parts of England and into parts of Scotland as well. Perhaps some brightness to start with across parts of Northern Ireland as that rain band pushes its way eastwards, and the far northeast of Scotland holding on to some of those clearer skies for a time during the morning. However, with those strong winds, that rain band will push its way eastwards relatively quickly as we go through the morning on Sunday, but it's the winds in the far north that do start to pick up. Parts of western Scotland could see gusts of 70 to 80 miles an hour, and in association with some high spring tides, we could see some coastal flooding in places. Turning a little drier across much of England and Wales as we go through the afternoon, and temperatures still above average for the time of year, but definitely feeling cooler than Saturday with those strong southwesterly winds. To start on Monday, still plenty of showers around across parts of Scotland, and it will still be a windy day, though not quite as windy as Sunday afternoon. Dry for much of Wales, southwest England, but in the far southeast we do have this area of rain just pushing its way north and eastwards, bringing some wet weather through the afternoon. Remaining unsettled through the middle part of next week, but temperatures still a little above average for the time of year.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Make sure you don't miss out. Get your entry in now. Just one entry could make you the winner. For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. this Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
The former royal correspondent for the Sun newspaper, Charles Ray. Good to see you this morning, Charles, and so good to see Catherine back to work with a hug.
It is. It's fantastic. I mean, there are a few royal jobs that touch at the heartstrings, and this is certainly one of those. And I think it's the first time we've actually seen Catherine back in a royal duty since she herself confirmed that she'd finished chemotherapy.
Done so much, haven't they, the Princess of Wales and the King, to raise awareness for these cancers.
Here we have both the King and Catherine having, explained to the nation and the rest of the world that they were battling or are still battling cancer, just like everyone else.
How sincere is all of this? I mean, it looks like she's a wonderful, kind, caring woman, but I don't know. I've never met her.
Well, she is a wonderful, kind, caring woman. That is without a shadow of a doubt. And William heard about this young lady on a visit to the air ambulance, and they invited her because she's a photographer, so she wanted to take. She has a bucket list and wanted to take pictures of an investiture. I mean, make no mistake, people like Catherine are just absolutely wonderful in what they do and how they do it. I mean, and Catherine is the superstar of the royal family. Of that, there is no doubt.
It's the cockles of my heart, Charles. It really does. It's really good to see you. Thanks very much.
All the
Thanks,
best.
Charles. Thanks. And Liz, who is this 16-year-old amateur photographer who was hugged by Princess of Wales yesterday, said it was a dream come true.
I bet it was.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Saturday night, and this is the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes, along with Will Kingston, Alex Armstrong, Emma Wolfe and Andy Williams. We've got plenty more to come tonight. We'll be speaking to a showbiz insider about the tragic death this week of Liam Payne, asking questions about what addiction really means, the impact of that, but also the media coverage on this. Is this a Diana moment? Should we really have gone this far, as some media outlets have indeed gone? We'll be exploring all of that shortly. And in the Saturday Scrap, are fat loss jabs the best way to get the unemployed back to work? Or are we treating them like lab rats? We'll be debating that. It's 7 p.m. and this is the Saturday 5. Loads more to come, though. We'll also rattle through this week's top stories in Bunch of Five. We'll take... Emma Wolfe's gone to the pub. Can't get her out. We'll take a look at London's Superdome. That's now going to Abu Dhabi instead. And would you move seats on an airplane for a disabled passenger? We'll debate that too. Then we'll be answering your questions in Ask the Five. Lots of questions there. I've just seen one about Crocodile Dundee. That must be related to you. Send them through to gbnews.com/your say. First of all, though, it's your Saturday night news with Tatiana Sanchez.
Darren, thank you very much. The top stories this hour. The Prime Minister has insisted the government will stick to its manifesto pledges amid reports the Chancellor may extend a freeze on tax thresholds. The Financial Times writes Rachel Reeves could raise £7 billion in revenue if the freeze is extended until 2028. It could help plug some of the £40 billion gap in the Treasury's finances with a hope of avoiding a return to austerity. But critics say it'll break the Labour promise not to raise taxes. In other news, the King and Queen Camilla have begun a landmark tour of Australia that'll see them celebrate the country's people, culture and heritage. A warning, some of the following footage contains flashing images. The couple's 6-day tour of the country started yesterday with a greeting on the runway by Prime Minister Anthony Albanese. The visit includes a trip to the Australian War Memorial and Sydney Opera House, plus Parliament. The Foreign Secretary says British businesses are seeking stability and clarity with China. David Lammy is on a 2-day visit to the country. His Chinese counterpart says bilateral ties are at a new starting point and competition among major powers should not be the backdrop to the era. But Lammy said by being there, the United Kingdom can also raise issues that it doesn't agree with.
There are areas where we can cooperate and collaborate with the Chinese, and I've been speaking to British businesses about how we do that. There are, of course, areas in which we will compete, and there are differences in areas in which we will challenge. Areas like Hong Kong, areas like Taiwan, areas like human rights in Xinjiang. We were able to have those conversations and raise difficult and challenging issues.
Zayn Malik has announced he'll reschedule his tour after the heartbreaking death of his former One Direction bandmate, Liam Payne. Meanwhile, Liam's sister earlier said on Instagram that she doesn't feel this world was good enough or kind enough to him in a heartfelt tribute to her late brother. Liam's father has visited the hotel in Argentina where his son died as he read tributes left for Liam outside the Casa Sur hotel. He was watched on by a crowd of mourners. Officials confirmed a search of the hotel that Liam had been staying in found narcotics, alcohol and destroyed objects inside the room. Fans laid flowers, played songs and lit candles in the tribute to Liam on the Kiel Wharf Bridge at Royal Albert Dock in Liverpool today. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says nothing will deter him and that Israel will continue its fight against Hamas until victory. His comments come just hours after a drone strike on the holiday home of Netanyahu failed, according to sources. The Israeli leader was not in the house or in the vicinity at the time of the attack, and the IDF says that nobody was injured. fired from neighbouring Lebanon. 3 drones were aimed at the town Caesarea, with 1 hitting a building and 2 intercepted. Meanwhile, Iran's supreme leader says the death of Hamas leader Yahya Sinwar will not halt its axis of resistance. And those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Tatiana Sanchez. Now it's back to the Saturday 5.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
It's still Saturday night and you're still with the Saturday 5. I'm Darren Grimes and I can promise that you're in for another very lively hour. We're going to crack on with tonight's big interview. Now, as you know by now, viewers will be aware, in tragic news this week, the former One Direction member and pop star Liam Payne died at the very young age of 31 after falling from a hotel balcony in Argentina. Now, tributes have been flooding in from Liam's former bandmates and celebrity friends. Now, last night, his ex-partner, Cheryl Tweedy, and the mother of his son, Bear, she released a statement on what she called abhorrent reports and media exploitation surrounding Liam's death. And let's not forget that TMZ and other outlets, they posted pictures of Liam's actual body. Now, tomorrow, a memorial's going to take place in Hyde Park as fans gather to remember the musician's life and work. Now, joining us to discuss this, I'm pleased to say, is the TV and showbiz editor at the Daily Star, Ed Gleave. Ed, thank you very much for joining me. I wonder, you've been in this industry for a wee while. Where do you draw the line, Ed? Because Cheryl's saying, hang on a minute, my kid, 7-year-old kid, is going to grow up and have all of this in an internet archive in which he can scroll through and read about the incident and all of the surrounding events about his father. She said to him, you've got to remember your humanity in all of this. Do you think there's a risk here that the media, well, tends to lose that in situations like this?
I mean, I think the print press in Britain is pretty highly regulated. And I would say that there are obviously occasions where I think it, goes beyond what's appropriate. But I mean, I've been at the Daily Star for nearly 15 years, and I can't think of anything that I felt crossed the bounds of sort of taste and decency as far as like what is too far for a child to read about their parent. But obviously, with online journalism, it's sometimes a bit of a Wild West. There are American websites that print stuff that we wouldn't print here. And, there's all sorts of discussions around whether photos of his body were posted. And obviously no one in their right mind would think that was a good idea. But that was a website in America. So it's quite different to what we have here in Britain. Well, yeah, they shouldn't have done it in the first place,
No, indeed, I couldn't agree with you more, Ed. But I mean, on the wider point about, and there have been several comments to this effect, do we need to have a wider conversation? Because if you consider, 2 weeks ago, his ex-girlfriend, Maya Henry, I believe her name is, she threatened legal action against him. And it seemed he'd lost his record deal and all these other things. And he turned again. He had gone sober, but he obviously reverted allegedly back. And I wonder, is there a wider conversation here, Ed, about the pressures that, you might think that the rich and famous live in the land of milk and honey, but that actually addiction and these issues of not knowing who you can trust when you're in the spotlight like this, of feeling that your life's falling apart, it ain't always easy. It ain't plain sailing.
I mean, there's no doubt that fame comes with a lot of problems and risks attached to it. If you're on a big TV show, if you're a pop star, if you're a presenter, there are temptations, and also the people around you might not have your best interests at heart. It's really difficult, though, I think, to pinpoint the responsibility to one sort of company or person? Like, is it X Factor's fault? Is it the management's fault? Like, when the band split up, really, do the management have a responsibility to like look after him forever, like indefinitely? Like, that seems unrealistic.
Yeah.
So I think while obviously there's a level to which, all companies should offer duty of care, especially if there's intense fame involved and all of that. But I think this is such a grey area, and there's so many factors at play when you're looking at the case like with Liam. So I think that apportioning blame to one company or one person or anything like that, like an ex-girlfriend or a TV show, I think is perhaps a bit naive, because, hundreds of people have ex-girlfriends who take legal action or write a book or say things on social media. Lots of people go on intense TV shows. Lots of people have, high intensity fame. They don't all end up in tragic situations. So I think, I think it's probably unfair and naive to try and apportion blame for this situation to one group or one person.
But it is a wider cultural problem within the media world and the music industry, because, if you consider, Liam kicked off really his fame when he was a 14-year-old kid, and Britney Spears started on Disney very, very young as well. And, Britney, since we all said free Britney, she ain't doing too great, actually, if you consider all of the posts that are going out on Instagram, dancing with knives and all the rest of it. There is a wider problem here, isn't there, within the culture of the industry in particular?
Yeah, fame when you're very young is not a great thing. If I had a child, I wouldn't want them to be famous very young, because suddenly they've got more money than they know what to do with. Lots of people who want to sort of use them for various reasons, for money and things like that. And also, there's a lot of temptation around with drugs and alcohol and things like that you wouldn't have if you're in a regular job. But, when people come from a regular family, from a regular town, and then their child at 14 gets offered this amazing opportunity to follow their dream and go on a big TV show, people probably don't think about the worst case scenario. They're kind of just excited by the opportunity, and you kind of see why people would seize that opportunity. So fame is very alluring, but I wouldn't particularly suggest that fame is a great idea. As you've sort of alluded to, the sort of tragedy rate, if you want to call it that, among famous people is far higher than for non-famous people. So that there are a lot of problems attached to fame, and there is no doubt. I think it's probably fair to say that if Liam had never become famous, we might not be in the situation we're in now. So I think fame is a big problem and is a big part of what's happened. But equally within that, there's so many factors at play. I think it's difficult to work out exactly where it went wrong. It's probably a factor of, many different things. And equally, there are lots of people who have fame at whatever age and deal with it really well. There are lots of people who have a great time, follow their dreams, earn plenty of money, have a great time. So it's a really difficult one to sort of pinpoint, I would say.
Yeah, I'm going to bring it out to the panel now. But, what I would say is I've seen a lot of people saying that, if you get involved with alcohol and drugs, then you know what you're doing and, it's all on you. I don't think anyone, a father in that position who clearly loved his child, you could see that in the interviews he did, you could see that in the Instagram posts that he made. Anyone wants to leave their child without a father. I think addiction is something that we all too willingly sort of apportion blame and say, well, you had it coming. I don't like that attitude. I look back and I think, my dad, alcohol issues and all the rest of it, I don't think he wanted to go down that path. I don't think anyone wants to be an addict. So I think we've got to have a little bit more heart, really. And I don't often say things like that.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and also I think that we need to talk more about mental illness, especially amongst young men, depression, struggling, being able to talk about the fact that they're struggling, young men like Liam Payne. And a more profound question about celebrity. What do you do when in your 20s your career is not over, but the thing that you've been massively globally famous for, when that comes to an end? And then what? He's got the rest of his life. He clearly had so much money and not really a sense of direction. I hate to say that, sorry, that's a bad pun, but not much direction.
The truth of the matter is, Alex, that there are addicts rich or poor, but the answer to that conundrum and why it's relevant here is because if you're that rich and you're that famous, you've got easy access to all of this.
Yeah, and you also don't have anything to lose per se, right? You know, you've got money, you've got the fame, you can go to rehabilitation. There's time. There's lots of people saying to you, you don't need to go and do rehabilitation. You can, you know, you can just carry on with your life as it is. And I think that pressure of that level of celebrity is insane. And you know, he was taken away from his British family support unit. He went to America and he was surrounded, reports say, surrounded by yes men, just letting him do whatever he wanted to do. And part of the music industry is to have a manager that's going to support you and say, don't do this, don't do that, and have a really hard line. And that's why a lot of parents stay involved late into the celebrity's life.
Andy, there are a lot, and we don't agree on much, but I think on this we probably do, because a lot of people are saying, there are some people at least within the comment section saying that we should move on from this and not talk about it, that people like Ed should stop talking about it. Why do you think this story matters?
Well, I think it asks really, really big questions about the nature of celebrity, about how we as the public think about and treat celebrities. You know, it's very easy on Twitter or any other platform to have a go at people and lay into them as if they're not human beings, but it really does affect them.
Ed, answer that question for me then. So to some viewers who might say, I'm absolutely getting sick of this, but I think the human tragedy can cut across rich, poor, whatever, famous, not famous, and that actually this is a tragedy almost Shakespearean. You know, you could go back throughout time. I just find this so utterly tragic and a sense of great loss, actually, when you read about all of the stints in rehab, Amy Winehouse, all of these other figures who've gone through these things to fight these demons and not come through the other end. And it, you know, it's just so frustrating.
I think it is an important conversation to have because, you know, the tragedy with this situation is it wasn't like he had an illness that nothing could be done. You know, potentially this could have been prevented. And so I think you wouldn't be human if you saw this and then didn't want to question how could it have been prevented? What could we do to stop it happening in the future? And so I think that it's natural and logical to want to have the conversation like how, as a society, can we improve? So I think, you know, the sort of old school media need to look at, you know, are there things that we print or say or whatever, or photos that are taken that maybe we need to address? I mean, the print media has changed and evolved over the years, as it should, TV the same. But I think a bigger problem is social media is just a wild west. Some of the stuff that is written on social media by regular people is, you know, far worse than anything you would read in a newspaper or see in a TV debate. And I think that social media companies probably need to be more tightly regulated and need to regulate themselves a bit better in the way that old school media does. Because, I mean, we've seen with Love Island, you know, it's fairly clear that the kind of the stuff that was said on social media was a big factor in the people on Love Island taking their own lives. And so I would say that social media possibly had a fairly large role to play in this as well. And I think that needs to be addressed.
All right, we'll leave that there. Thank you very much for keeping us updated, Ed. That's Eddie from the Daily Star. He is their showbiz editor. Now, still to come tonight, my friends, we're going to rattle through this week's top stories in the bunch of five. Earlier, I said Emma Wolf was off to the pub. She's going to be talking about the pub. I wasn't trying to tell you that Emma Wolf was an alcoholic. She doesn't touch the stuff. Now, though, I drink for her. It's time for the Saturday Scrap. This week, are fat loss jobs really the best way to get the unemployed back to work? We'll be debating that. Will and Emma Wolf will be going head to head, battling that one out. My friends, you're with the Saturday Five. We're live on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Love a bit of baking and share some hot tips. We're delighted to be joined by our baking extraordinaire, Matty Edgell, who won Great British Bake Off last year. Woo! Welcome. Congratulations as well. I'm sure you're sick of being congratulated.
And there's a nice reminder.
No, you like all the glory.
Yeah.
What was it like winning the Great British Bake Off? What's the last year been like for you?
Winning it was I was not expecting to win at any point until they said my name.
You're a very
it was a nice
guy.
surprise. No, I was
really
in touch with reality. Yeah, no, I wasn't.
Was it quite a close race throughout then?
Yeah, I considered myself the underdog throughout. I think the first week I turned around after the showstopper and kind of saw how good everyone was, and then looked at mine and thought, how have I got here? And that kind of theme followed through.
But then that surely like an underdog. You on.
Yeah, it did.
Actually, I'm going to get better throughout this.
Yeah, I think it made me kind of like really tune into the feedback that they was giving me and trying to embed that throughout. So that's probably why.
Could you feel yourself improving as the series went on?
Definitely, and I think also, like, kind of simultaneously, my confidence improved at the same time, and then that, like, little bit of belief in myself probably helped out as well.
What was your strength? Biscuits, cake, bread?
I think cake's my strength.
Cake.
I think cake, typically, if you start baking, that's probably where you start, isn't it? So that was what I knew most.
How did you start baking?
I've been asked this so many times since...
You don't know?
I attribute it to my nan.
Oh,
sweet. But, yeah, I would say... I think most people probably attribute it to like a grandparent or something that they maybe done with like their parents when they was growing up. So that's I'll give it to my nan.
Or the major lockdown baking boom.
Yeah, banana bread.
Everybody all over the place, isn't it? It's good.
Yeah, it's really good. I love a banana bread, even now.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What? Welcome back to the Saturday Live. That was Emma responding to some of your messages. Anyway, thank you very much for them. Well, there are lots of questions coming through at the minute. And a lot of you saying, don't regulate social media anymore. You know, we need to just help people actually be able, perhaps, to filter out their social media feed. So I do that, to be honest with you, because when you sit and read the constant bile that these Ramonas send out every 2 seconds, well, it would drive anyone mad. So I filter it all out. I do. Anyway, my friends, it's time for this. Yes, indeedy, it's time for tonight's main event. The Health Secretary has suggested that the government could give the unemployed new weight loss jabs to help them get back to work. Wes Streeton is his name, and he said widening waistbands are costing the NHS 11 billion quid a year. He went on to suggest that fat loss jabs could be administered to those currently not working in order to reduce pressure on both the economy and the health service. So is this a productive move, I can't speak, or something far more dangerous and sinister? Do you see this as experimentation on the unemployed, or do you see this as a sensible measure to curb addictions, you know, to food and others, and actually help people get back into the world of work? Well, they're going to take it away. Will Kingston and the Wolfster are taking it on. Seconds out, it's round one. Ding, ding. Take it away, Emma.
OK, let's make no mistake about it. Obesity is the #1 health crisis of our times. It really is. It's causing so much pressure on the NHS. It's causing cancer, diabetes, amputations, weight loss, blindness, all sorts of other, heart attacks, heart strokes, all sorts of issues. But this weird, murky deal that Keir Starmer, your leader, has announced, this sort of weird partnership with Eli Lilly, £300 million deal, whereby we're going to get 1.2 million people on these weight loss jabs, Mount Jara, weirdly named after an ape, over the next 12 years, is extremely weird, and it's not the solution. It's basically an admission of failure. They have failed to deal with the obesity crisis. They have failed to curb the ultra-processed food industry. They have failed to get people moving again, or to even convince them that being healthy, that eating well, that doing exercise is the way to go. I don't know, are we planning to have these patients on these jabs for the rest of their lives? What's that going to cost the NHS? Are these injections safe long-term? Are people going to be going in for these injections once a week? If not, are people just going to put the weight back on when they stop injecting? So many questions, very few answers. What do you think, Will?
Well, look, far be it from me to defend Keir Starmer. And by the way, far be it from me to defend unemployed fatties. I've got no sympathy for unemployed fatties. I just think there'll be a lot less of them with this proposal. Look, a couple of things. We know that these drugs work. In fact, 1 in 8 Americans apparently have been on these drugs to date since they've come onto the market. And for the first time in human history, in any Western country, we are actually seeing a reversal in rates of obesity in America. And these drugs are almost widely acknowledged to be the reason for that. But the other admission of failure point is, well, yeah, of course it's a mission of failure. Nothing else has worked. And the fact of the matter is that this is a very simple business case and that they're not that expensive, these drugs. And we do know that being fat means you're less productive. We do know that being fat means you're less motivated. If there's a simple jab that will potentially mean that we get more people into the workforce and I don't have to pay for these lazy layabouts on the couch as they eat Doritos, I'm all for it.
Well, OK. Have you read about the side effects of these jabs? Because they're not just simple jabs. I mean, they have quite serious side effects. We simply don't have the long-term scientific data to prove that they're even safe.
We do, because we know that these have been used as diabetes medication for over 20 years. If there was going to be something really serious, then we would have known about it.
For people with diabetes?
Yeah, but it's still the drug is going into your bloodstream. It's still going into your system.
OK, are we putting children on these? Because there's a lot of obese children.
Are we putting children into the workforce?
2/3 of adults.
Up the chimney you go.
Okay, are we putting people on these long term for the rest of their lives?
No, I don't think you necessarily need to, but I'm not a doctor. We need Dr. Renee on for this. But the fact of the matter is, I see this...
No, there is no plan.
But I see... Well, no, you can have a short-term reset where you lose weight, because the problem with so many of these issues, it is a vicious cycle. You lose motivation, you lose productivity, and then if you chop 10 kilos off, well, maybe not
Robert Jenrick. Robert Jenrick said he didn't like the side effects, but he took them for a while. It kick-started a 4-stone weight loss, and now he's off them. But he's doing it himself.
You see, right, so I'm not against the use of these drugs, right? I'm not against the use. If it helps people get back into work, sure. I don't believe the latter half of that sentence, though. I don't believe losing weight means you're less lazy. I think lazy is a mindset. And I just believe if you're overweight, get on a treadmill, go to the gym, go for a walk, eat healthy. These are really simple solutions.
Thanks, Coach. This hasn't worked. Like, this is the reality.
Well, you're right. You're not wrong. You're not wrong that it hasn't worked. But that's a result of society just dilapidating.
Responsibility argument, but I'm paying for this lack of personal responsibility.
Alex, obesity is an eating disorder as well. It's often a result of disordered eating, and it's not that simple as just get motivated. People are comfort eating or eating a vast amount of food for other reasons as well, for other emotional, mental health.
I would be in favour of giving people gym discounts and things like that, because I think the long-term health benefits of getting somebody into the gym and exercising massively outweighs what Ozempic can do for them. So I do think that we've sort of jumped over a few hurdles to get to Ozempic. I do get that it's
what if
ironically
written in saying was one of Robert Jenrick's side effects that he's now right-wing after being a Tory wet for most of his career. It's a good point. Now, listen, I'm saying to GB News loud and clear, it's time for me to be sacked because I want one of these fat jabs. I'm telling you that now. I'm going to lose weight. I'm going to mince through this studio like you wouldn't believe, like a young gazelle. And what do you think?
I am slightly concerned about the sort of over-medication of society. Like, Will mentioned that 1 in 8 Americans are on this.
We're jabbed like pincushions, aren't we?
Americans, the American approach to sort of the pharmaceutical industry is mad. I mean, there are so many issues there with all sorts of jabs and pills and God knows what. So I would be a little bit concerned about that.
Are you worried about fat shaming? Do you see it as a problem, Andy? Catherine does.
Well, I think basically agree with what Emma said, which is that it's not as sort of straightforward as Alex said, like just, you know, get on your bike, get on your treadmill. I mean, for some people it is, right? Of course it is for some people, but for other people it's a mental health issue, and I think...
Can I just say, we glorify fat people in our culture these days. There's Nike adverts, yes we do. There are Nike adverts, body positivity nonsense, Lizzo floating around with a flute going, it's okay to be obese and dying. I mean, come on, it's becoming an epidemic of illness in our culture.
It's not that we glorify it, it's that we are scared of saying to people, hold on, doctors are scared of saying, you're fat, you need to lose weight.
Fat people are saying obesity is a swear word.
Hang on. You can get the gym on prescription, right? So why has that not worked?
Look,
this is as easy as you say, Alex.
I'll tell you. We live in a fundamentally obesogenic society. Everything militates against movement, right? Everything you get delivered to your door. Your phone, everything is in front of your phone. We don't move. Think about the 1950s. Housework was physical, hard labour. You would walk to work, you would get the bus to work. Now, Uber's to the door, Uber's here, Uber's there. Don't even stand up to make your food, you just literally get it on your Deliveroo. So
yeah, now to lose weight, all you've got to do is sit on the sofa and inject yourself with Ozempic. It doesn't solve the problem, it's not a mindset issue.
This is the point, we're not going to reverse modernity, right? Like, this is actually a solution which is available, which we know works, and which may potentially also have benefits for the economy.
Wait, so we create all this ultra-processed food, we get people this fat, and then we jab them. It's so wrong. We need to return to the days before smartphones, before ultra-processed food. We need to...
Before you know it, they'll be holding people down and jabbing them like they wanted to do with COVID vaccines, you nutters.
Again, make real food again.
Does anyone have a problem with the sort of coercion element where, you know, we were all told we have to absolutely get jabbed and all the rest of it? Grumpy Grandad is telling me to get myself down the gym. Now, I'll be coming for you, Grumpy Grandad. The problem here is that actually some people are questioning, actually, we didn't question enough the mRNA jab. Are we not questioning this jab enough? Because you're right.
Where's the coercion aspect?
Well, if they're saying to fatties, well, I don't know what the tenets
Well, it's the same argument that some broadcasters and some politicians made in COVID here, which was to say, if you don't take this jab, we're going to hold you down. We should hold you down and force you to take it. Save our NHS sort of stuff,
don't
right?
get your benefit, fatso.
We'll take your benefits away.
I think it's good. Whatever we think about this specifically, it's good to see the Health Secretary and the government thinking a little bit outside the box about how we resolve some of these problems. And I think Wes Streeting actually has the right prescription for the NHS in the future.
Oh, very nice little fight there.
Saying this, but I agree.
They have said it's not compulsory, but, you know, the government say things and then they do something.
It will be soon. It will be soon.
Well, yeah.
We'll have your Ozempics.
I'm joking. They caught that on camera as well. Right. Still ahead, my friends. Send in your questions for Ask the Five, where you can ask us absolutely anything, and it better not be about our waistlines, but we will endeavour to do the very best to reply. Next of all, though, it's time for Bunch of Five, where we'll rattle through some of the top stories of the week, from airplane passengers to London's Superdome to a group of friends who have met for a pint every Thursday for more than 50 years. You're with the Saturday Five, live on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Ashley is arriving overnight tonight and into the start of tomorrow, bringing some wet and windy weather across much of the UK, with yellow and amber wind warnings in force for many places. Storm Ashley is situated out in the Atlantic at the moment, moving towards the UK with those very tightly packed isobars indicating those strong winds. It will start dry for most of us this evening though, but turning increasingly cloudy from the west as we see this initial rain band arriving in association with Storm Ashley, and those winds really starting to pick up, particularly along Irish Sea coast, where we could see gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. It will be quite a mild night, those temperatures holding up in the double figures, particularly in the south and the west due to all that cloud and those strong winds. In association with this rain band, we will see some particularly heavy rainfall, particularly over the high ground of southwest England, Wales, and across northern parts of England and into parts of Scotland as well. Perhaps some brightness to start with across parts of Northern Ireland as that rain band pushes its way eastwards, and the far northeast of Scotland holding on to some of those clearer skies for a time during the morning. However, with those strong winds, that rain band will push its way eastwards relatively quickly as we go through the morning on Sunday, but it's the winds in the far north that do start to pick up. Parts of western Scotland could see gusts of 70 to 80 miles an hour, and in association with some high spring tides, we could see some coastal flooding in places. Turning a little drier across much of England and Wales as we go through the afternoon, and temperatures still above average for the time of year, but definitely feeling cooler than Saturday with those strong southwesterly winds. To start on Monday, still plenty of showers around across parts of Scotland, and it will still be a windy day, though not quite as windy as Sunday afternoon. Dry for much of Wales, southwest England, but in the far southeast we do have this area of rain just pushing its way north and eastwards, bringing some wet weather through the afternoon. Remaining unsettled through the middle part of next week, but temperatures still a little above average for the time of year.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about. Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday Five. As always, thank you very much for your messages about tonight's topics. Now, Christina says, you guys are mean with all the fat shaming. I certainly don't mean to be, Christina. I know how hard it can be for people to actually lose the weight once you've got it on. And taking certain medications, of course, makes some people put on weight faster. If you're taking, I don't know, certain antidepressants or something, which obviously everyone's been prescribed in large numbers these days. And another comment says, RJ says, 5 skinny people talking about something they do not understand. Yeah, Alex?
What are you looking at me for?
Well, why are you talking about it?
Well, I've written 10 books on eating disorders, so I do understand.
There you go.
Oh, well, there we are. So you think, actually, we all have a right to talk about it?
Absolutely.
Okie dokie. Now, well, Rob has a good idea, though. He says, Darren, you were on live in my local in Brighton. God, I'm surprised I'm on live there, I tell you what. Fun story, I'll tell you. I lived there and I was campaigning for Brexit at the time, and someone came over and spat in my face. I said, that's just what you people do to each other in this part, you dirty dog. But anyway, Robert says, you are live in my local. A guy just said to me, he has the answer. Make low-fat Guinness. Yeah, Rob, I think you might be onto something. That's Robin Hove. Thank you very much for your messages. Now, though, my friends, it's time for this. Unleash the Willy. What have you got for us, Will?
That's a new one. I like that.
How am I meant to continue after that? Right, OK. Russell Brand's miraculous conversion to Christianity has continued this week. He's been flogging a 188 quid magical amulet on his social media accounts, which is meant to ward off evil spirits. As a quick reminder for everyone, Russell Brand was accused of incredibly serious sexual assault allegations. He then found God. And as a result of finding God, we've stopped talking about those sexual assault allegations. He's picked up a lot of very famous, very successful right-wing friends who normally are very suspicious of conspiracy theories. But in this instance, the sincerity apparently is there for all to see. My question to the 5, how is this grifter getting away with it?
Well, hang on a minute, right? People say to me, oh, Rob Jenrick, you know, it's perfectly plausible that he could have gone from the left of the party, the Conservative Party, that is, to the right to almost become a Farage-light politician. But you're telling me someone can't become a Christian?
I think the gap between Russell Brand's hedonism and his Christianity today is greater than the difference between the left and the right-wing gap that Robert Jenrick
you haven't seen the left and the right of the Conservative Party.
Russell Brand spent years as part of his entire persona and act deriding religion, and he is clearly, as Will says, because he is the biggest grifter since Captain Tom and his daughter, by the way. He is clearly...
Captain Tom wasn't...
He wasn't captain.
Yes, he was.
No, he bloody wasn't.
Massive grifter. Anyway,
he served this country.
He walked around his garden 100 times.
He was a veteran in the military. A veteran in the military. I will not take that. He was a veteran in the military.
Okay,
We call that an own goal.
Anyway, we're talking about Russell Brand, and he absolutely just is doing this as a distraction technique from the awful things he has been accused of. And anyone who wants to know who Russell Brand is, just watch that Channel 4 documentary he mentioned. Says everything you need to know.
All right, I think you're all very cynical.
Sorry, I saw him being baptised in that river in his wife hunt, and I'm scarred for life.
All right, they're not fans of Russie Brand. Here, Alex, what have you got?
Well, have you ever swapped seats with someone on an airplane, whether it's for children, whether it's for people who are disabled? Well, the story that I found this week in the Mirror said a man who would not refuse to swap his seats with a disabled couple. He claimed that he'd paid for his seats and that he's entitled to sit there, and that that couple should have done the same, or the airline should have made special arrangements for them. So my question to the five is, are you entitled to sit in your seat, and should you or would you move if it was a disabled passenger? Anyone want to go first?
I'd move. I think it's just a nice thing to do.
What if you had a 14-hour flight and you were going to be shoved in the middle row, and you originally paid for a window seat? You'd move?
I think, yeah, for a disabled passenger, I definitely would. It doesn't bother me enough to not move. I think you're just being stubborn.
Yeah, I would as well.
Darren?
Yeah, I definitely would, actually.
Would there are circumstances where you wouldn't? Would you move for a family?
If I was in business class and they were asking me to move to economy, I wouldn't.
But I absolutely think the airline should have managed that better, that they should have refunded if you paid extra for a flight with lots of legroom and then you were asked to move. The airline should have made sure that the disabled passenger had enough legroom.
Well, he says in his story that the airline, the hostess rolled her eyes at him when he wouldn't move. Obviously, he's saying he's entitled to that seat, which I agree if he paid for it, and they're saying no refunds, you have to just sit where you're told. I do sympathise with them a little bit there, but I probably would have moved, but that's it. What about you, Will?
I think the disabled thing probably pushes it into a particularly different territory. If it was just a kind of moving for a kiddie who wants to be next to their family, different kettle of fish. But
leave the baby there.
I think I agree with you on this one,
OK, I want to talk to you now about Mrs Lego Hair, Rachel Reeves. The Chancellor of the Exchequer has said, well, reportedly, is suggesting that actually maybe the Treasury could be about, for the first time in 14 years, hike fuel duty, making it hard for you at home driving your motors to get out and about, and also freezing the rates as well of taxation, which will drag more people into higher bans and all these other things. So it's going to be one hell of a ride, put it that way. But I would just ask you this, my friends. I see this as a concerted effort to get you to buy these expensive electric cars, because guess what? The number of people buying them has gone down because we've all realised it's all a massive con, and that actually petrol and diesel motors, they work, right? Doesn't work when you're stuck on the motorway after your electric car decides it needs some juice and you can't get a plug for love nor money. So I ask you this, do you think this is a concerted effort to get people out of their cars? That's what I see it as. Leave fuel duty alone, people are struggling as it is. Whose priorities do Labour have, Andy? Because it isn't the working British man or woman.
Motorists have been one of the most protected groups by governments, successive governments, over a long period of time. Fuel duty hasn't gone up since 2011. The tax system is partly designed to disincentivise behaviours that we don't need, and people driving everywhere is not necessary. And I say that as somebody who has parents who drive to work. I understand I don't drive because I live in London, so I don't need to, but I understand lots of people need to drive in order to get to work. But I just think if you're looking at priorities...
All right, hang on. This is a metropolitan Liberal view.
Yeah, outside of London, people do need... I don't drive, I cycle, I don't even have a car. I've never filled a car up.
I thought you guys were meant to be against regressive taxes.
Outside of London, people need to drive to get to school. They need to drive to get to work, to get to the supermarket.
Emma, what have you got for us?
What have I got for you? I've got a feel-good story.
Oh, you have?
For once, a feel-good story. It's a really cute thing I spotted on a rival channel. There are these 5 guys, and since 1968, these 5 guys have been meeting up every Thursday in a local pub. So they meet in pubs between Sheffield and Rotherham. every Thursday night, and they say, we used to talk about soccer and sex, and now we talk about prostates and pensions. And I think that's really cute. And briefly, well, prostates, pensions, I don't know.
What are you going to ask us, Emma?
No, what I was going to ask you was, has WhatsApp, has lockdown, has modern life kind of destroyed that meeting up with your friends in the pub? I just feel like I talk to so many of my friends every day in detail over WhatsApp, over this, that and the other. And we don't actually sit down in the pub, and these guys have done it for...
I think it's the cost of living that's done that.
Years.
So I think it's the cost of living. Getting a pint now is like £8 a pint in London, and then if you want to get food with it, that's 30 quid. And so I just think people can't afford it anymore.
We do need to utilise our pubs, but I wonder if these things have something to do with it.
Gen Z doesn't drink
other
anymore
phones
as well.
are
That's
available. Andy, what have you got?
So this is the story that what's called the Sphere, which was a proposed huge entertainment venue in East London. It was. I think planning permission was awarded back in 2022. Sadiq Khan said, no, we don't want it here. There are all sorts of bad side effects. It's a big, bright LED screen. It's not going to be great for people who live there locally. It's gone to Abu Dhabi instead. And I just think it's such a shame that what could have been a world-class entertainment venue in London is now not going to be here.
Well, Andy, all I can say to that is imagine the electricity bill and imagine what Ed Miliband's doing to electricity prices.
Well, that's why it's an LED screen, you see, so it's absolutely...
No, I'm actually on Andy's side for this one. I think we should be trying to encourage investment and tourism to our capital, into our country. I maybe wouldn't have put it in London. It's pretty crowded here as it is. But yeah, I actually agree with it. I think we should be trying to draw those investors. It's innovative, you know? Are we going to put it in Stratford? It's much worse than that anyway.
This is a country that's determined to make itself more ugly by the day. Just every single high street.
Dude, it's in Stratford. Have you been there? Like, seriously.
Look, well, you know, don't make it worse. This is a good decision by Sadiq Khan, and I can't believe those words are coming out of my mouth.
Good Lord, I've never said that in my life.
He's going to have a job, Robert Jenrick-like turnaround this evening.
Okie dokie, still ahead. We'll answer all of your questions in Ask the Five. No topics off limits. Come on, you've only got some minutes left. I wonder what you've got in store for us so far. You're with the Saturday Five, and we're live on GB News.
I'm Arlene Foster on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet, and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good to see you both this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean, and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programmes. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, you know, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute.
kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+, and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player app. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the Saturday 5. As always, thank you very much for your emails and messages about tonight's topics. We're going to get to them because it's now time for this. Okie dokie, let's see what hell you've unleashed upon us this week. Jane says, should we have had a referendum on giving up the Chagos Islands?
I think we should have done. Because we never would have left them then. We never would have got rid of them then. I think we should just have had it in the manifesto. Put it in your manifesto. If you're going to relinquish British territory, at least be honest.
You know, there was a referendum in Malta in the 50s, I believe, to actually become part of the United Kingdom.
And they voted yes.
I wish they had of.
They had voted yes.
Test is a government decision that can't be reversed.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And it certainly cannot.
And literally that just happened overnight.
Yeah.
I don't even know if that was legal for Starmer and Lammy to decide that.
Well, it was, obviously. I mean, we don't...
Well, look what it did to poor Alex Salmond.
Meltdown. We obviously don't need... We shouldn't be having a referendum on anything. We live in a representative democracy. Referenda are bad.
That's so Keir Starlin of you, Andy.
Listen, I know your game. Now, one of our viewers, Union Jack, says, Darren, they got your makeup spot on tonight. Neither Casper nor Clown. I just can't win, can I? Thank you, Union Jack. Right, what else have we got? Josh says this. I remember my childhood with no phones. It was bliss, but our whole world is online these days. Don't children need internet literacy? Yeah, so if we want to be the tech titans of the world and outcompete China and all these other things, the United States has way more unicorns. What's the definition of a unicorn?
It's $1 billion.
$1 billion tech startup. Than we do. Do we not need our kids?
Absolutely, but you have in the curriculum you have a part called computer science, and you teach them about internet safety. You teach them how to do coding, all of that. Not embedded into the entire learning.
The problem with those courses is that the kids are already outmastering the teachers. That's the thing. The kids already know more, so they don't learn anything. That's the problem.
We've got one question actually for you, Andy, and. Alan has written in. Alan says, hi, Darren. As I'm sure you know, Andy Williams continues to be very irritating. But would you tell him that my mum still likes his records, in particular Moon River? Perhaps he could sing it for us one evening.
Well, firstly, I should say hello to my mum, who I think is watching.
So
hello, Andy's mum.
He'll be very upset about that comment from Alan. So maybe Alan should think carefully. Secondly, I'm not going to sing anything because I'm an awful singer. And thirdly, if Alan thinks he's the first person who's ever made that joke,
I have heard it before, by the way. I have heard it before. Right, Brenda has written in. Good evening, Brenda. And Brenda says, ask the five, what would you do first if you were Prime Minister for a month? Well...
Give the pensioners back their money.
Oh, for God's sake. I would deport Sir Keir Starmer.
I'd deploy the Navy into the English Channel. How about that?
To shoot the boats?
Well, no, to tow them back. I'm not going to blow them up. Tow them back to France. That's what I want to do. Tow them back.
Halve the rates of income tax and corporate tax. But I'll find out a way to pay for it, unlike a notable recent leader.
Liz Truss again.
That is key. Good luck with that. God, there's so many things.
Ban referendums from the Constitution.
Well, we obviously shouldn't have them. No, I would probably say sort out our housing supply. That is the massive issue. Massive house building programme coupled with huge taxes on second homes.
I wish towing back the boats would work, though, but it just wouldn't. They would fall into the water.
You see that massive battleship in front of you, you're not coming towards that.
What Australia did is put them in these orange, almost mini submarine type things, and they were completely indestructible. Well, not indestructible, but they would float, right?
But this is the thing. You only need to do it for a period of time until you establish deterrence, and then it stops. Yes. It's absolutely a viable solution.
Yeah.
I'm going to run for Tory party leader.
Yeah.
You might win. It's such a dark race.
So my policy
Don't tempt me, Robert.
Yes.
Kemi, don't tempt me.
I agree, my friends. Now, We've got 50 seconds, a quick one. Actually, the pub near me, Wendy says the pub near me is overflowing. The only problem is actually getting to the bar. Do you find that's a problem, that actually the pubs are too full in certain areas?
There's so less of them these days.
Yeah, go on, Emma.
Well, no, people are queuing in pubs, in a queue.
It's
That's
English.
just wrong.
It's because the pubs are shutting down everywhere.
You surge towards the bar. You surge.
It's a free-for-all. I
think bar surfing is a skill. I think you've got to know how to break through the crowds.
I thought you meant behind the bar.
Like surfing through the queues.
Thank you very much to our guests tonight. Up next, it's a brilliant Leo Curse with the Saturday Night Showdown. Thank you very much for watching. Let's hope Leo Curse has got the right shade of makeup on for you all at home tonight. See you next week.
Despite the morning rain, it'll be a nice, warm, cosy day ahead. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good evening, welcome to your latest GB News weather from the Met Office. Storm Ashley is arriving overnight tonight and into the start of tomorrow, bringing some wet and windy weather across much of the UK, with yellow and amber wind warnings in force for many places. Storm Ashley is situated out in the Atlantic at the moment, moving towards the UK with those very tightly packed isobars indicating those strong winds. It will start dry for most of us this evening though, but turning increasingly cloudy from the west as we see this initial rain band arriving in association with Storm Ashley, and those winds really starting to pick up, particularly along Irish Sea coast, where we could see gusts of 50 to 60 miles an hour. It will be quite a mild night, those temperatures holding up in the double figures, particularly in the south and the west due to all that cloud and those strong winds. In association with this rain band, we will see some particularly heavy rainfall, particularly over the high ground of southwest England, Wales, and across northern parts of England and into parts of Scotland as well. Perhaps some brightness to start with across parts of Northern Ireland as that rain band pushes its way eastwards, and the far northeast of Scotland holding on to some of those clearer skies for a time during the morning. However, with those strong winds, that rain band will push its way eastwards relatively quickly as we go through the morning on Sunday, but it's the winds in the far north that do start to pick up. Parts of western Scotland could see gusts of 70 to 80 miles an hour, and in association with some high spring tides, we could see some coastal flooding in places. Turning a little drier across much of England and Wales as we go through the afternoon, and temperatures still above average for the time of year, but definitely feeling cooler than Saturday with those strong southwesterly winds. To start on Monday, still plenty of showers around across parts of Scotland, and it will still be a windy day, though not quite as windy as Sunday afternoon. Dry for much of Wales, southwest England, but in the far southeast we do have this area of rain just pushing its way north and eastwards, bringing some wet weather through the afternoon. Remaining unsettled through the middle part of next week, but temperatures still a little above average for the time of year.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of...
This is the final week to grab your chance to win £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway, and you really could be next.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And if I can win, anyone can win.
For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. this Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and he did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight.